Feeling like a lion. Lion energy is a good thing to invoke. And I see maybe that this year is like this huge bewildebeest, and I am going to tackle it and take it down. Hello everybody, Saul here. Welcome back to the Solmanac. Today I'm going to be sketching. Specifically, I'm going to be doing a lion. I don't get to draw as many lions as I should be, and I feel like I should have done more by now. I'm saying in at least the 10 years of Ghost in the Gaslight and all that drawing and storytelling, I didn't really do a lion, and so it got me thinking after our time together making that black wolf painting in my art journal. One, I wanted to get more into my pencils again, just really get into the joy of sketching and that type of problem solving. I wanted to do more animals, and I wanted to do a lion. Also, we're just getting into 2025. We're about 2 weeks in, and I feel like lion energy is a good thing to invoke this year. I think this is a good I'm feeling like a lion this year. There's a lot I am tackling, there's a lot I'm taking on, and I see maybe that this year is like this huge bewildebeest, and I am going to tackle it and take it down no matter what. And so also I was excited to dip into this beautiful package from Leather Village. This was a gift from my brother, and he got me this beautiful paper. I just want to take a moment. I mean, this is a wonderful type of cotton watercolor paper, and it's just I don't know if you can really see the way that the weave on the parchment is, but it is just it's just gorgeous. The way that the light hits it and it just feels raised. It feels like a piece of cloth, and I can't wait to play with it and see what happens. So we're gonna learn a little bit about lions, because I do enjoy when I'm sketching an animal. I like to talk about them, maybe learn about them. I do just tend to have lots of interesting factoids that I collect over the years. So that'll be fun. Whatever you like to do, you should totally do that. I want you to live your best life. Maybe you're knitting, maybe you're drawing, maybe you're painting, maybe you're sewing, maybe you're cooking. I would be honored to accompany you on that. So feel free to turn this on, and let's see where this little adventure takes us, and let's go find ourselves a lion. Alrighty, my friends, let's get this going. The pencil is in place. We are adjusting for lighting, and this was kind of at first an atmospheric lighting, which is what I generally like to write in. And it can be a nice lamp, or it can be some beeswax candles. I've lately gone towards the beeswax candles, by the way, because they apparently seem to be much healthier. The smell is amazing. You get a nice beeswax candle, and it just smells like this honey. But it's wonderful to just write. Early morning, end of the day, what have you. It's a beautiful thing. And it's really exciting working with this paper. It's just somewhere between the thin type of sketchbook paper and then the thicker, more raised watercolor paper, and really enjoy it. Haven't done too much on this paper, but really been getting the hang of it. And today I really wanted to work on a lion, and it's that beginning of the year, time to play around with how you see yourself, play around with your sense of self, your ego, and see where it takes you. You never know. And here I'm going really light, as you can see. I would say the main idea with this is to familiarize myself with this new canvas today and this utensil that is in my hand. And we just all get to know each other. And I start to get a little fast and loose here. I can kind of get it a little more into my wrist. And you can't quite see it on this page. I'm seeing there's like a lot of kind of shapes that the mane of this lion is making. And I think the important thing is to just dance in the beginning. Really demonstrate to the canvas your relationship to it. There's been times where I almost will take a much more of a beginner's approach where I'm laboring too much on one thing. And you don't want to get too attached like that, because you could work way too much on the eye, and then as you make everything, or you work too much on the nose, but then way down the line everything is out of place. And I still do that at times, where I just, we all get addicted to something. But with this one, I'm really trying to make sure that the lines, the alignment, and where the proportions are, and the relationships to everything. This section of the mane, where is it in relationship to that side of the mane, or where the nose is, or the eyes, or light and shadow. Like, that's all going to come into play. I guess what I'd say is what's happening here is this is the foundation of a structure, of a building. And I'm just going to keep laying foundation. I'm going to start pouring the concrete. I'm going to get the framework in. There will be scaffolding, there will be walls, there will be insulation, there will be extra layers, there will be paint, there will be roofing, and I'm saying all this with just a little sketch. I thought you were just sketching a lion, but I think the reason that I really wanted to get detailed into a lion specifically is because it's a chance to work with fur. This lion, I found this picture, and he is like all mane. And I could do another lion at some point where it's more about the musculature. I mean, they have beautiful musculature. But with this one, I'm just taken with wind in hair, and what's better than a large maned lion in the wind. And by the time I'm coming into a little bit of detail, I'm starting with his nose, which is kind of an interesting place to start, I think. But sometimes I have a point of coming to the most important parts, like the eyes, in a kind of a roundabout way. It's not the first thing I necessarily want to do, because I know how I work. I know that I might get way too into the pressure of starting correctly if I start with the eyes. But if I go roundabout and I start with the nose, then there's this part of me that starts to calm down, and I just kind of see it as this other part of the building I'm making. The eyes are just this piece of the wall or the window. But with the nose, I feel like, particularly with this lion, the nose is really part of this series of little events in the piece that includes the mouth and some of the teeth. They're just being shown, and in this case, what I'm doing is I want to give myself a win early on. So I'm seeing that, hey, there's this part, okay, I'm seeing how that can come together. I think once I do that, that's going to make a whole bunch of other stuff come into focus. So sometimes the best thing is to pick the part where you feel most confident. And generally, if you're doing a person or a animal, I would say it's likely going to be in the face, and then the body will follow. But keep pushing yourself to study the body there. And as as you keep getting the data, it's going to help you figure out all your next moves. It'll inform where you're going. Now, as we zoom in, you can see what I'm doing with this face here. And I'm starting to figure out the very peculiar structure of this particular lion's face. That is another fun thing, is if you were to pick one animal and just draw it over and over, you kind of see the individuality of that animal. I mean, from the standpoint of like what makes the picture that you're referencing from so special. And this is basically a pure graphite, and which is pretty fun in terms of with sketching. I do feel that this was an interesting piece for me. It really became more about just drawing and less about the smudging. The smudging came much, much later. But faces, man, very fascinating things. And another gratifying thing of drawing an animal for me, and I think it kind of goes back to a type of research that an actor does. You know, if you're playing a character, you are researching everything you can about that character, or you are learning about maybe what animal they might be. And then you're learning about that animal to maybe get some clues. And I like bringing that into some of the work I do, because this one is essentially a lion reference. So it's a lion just sitting in space. Not necessarily telling like a whole story other than that he is feeling the wind and everything, that I just absolutely loved. But I think a lot of times, most of what I'm doing is narrative rather than an icon, like an image just for its own merit. I like to tell a story with what I'm doing. So I think what is most important is being I think what is most important is being able to feel like I connect to it in a deeper level than the initial thought that drew me to it. In other words, if I'm making this piece, I don't want to just say, hey, I'm just going to draw this thing like I did when I was a little kid. I think that's awesome. But as I keep doing these, what I seek to do is create and learn. I think that is just a very fulfilling way to live, and I get to learn so much about life. And if I were to zoom out, I'd say with all my ghost stories, that got me into hunting and sifting and seeking out classic ghost story literature and learning about the greats, the Gothic writers, and Dickens and Oscar Wilde. I always enjoyed them anyway, but I really have an appreciation for Poe because as I kept doing this stuff, I kept learning about him. So similarly, with each little reference of an animal, I want to learn a little bit about it. So over the years, I get like interesting bits of knowledge. And one of the fascinating things with lions to me, and especially with the males, because when they take over a pride, they are pretty much waited on. They get all their women, and they father, more cubs. And it's really strange because what does the male lion really do in a sense? Like, I guess he protects the females from other males, and they do all the hunting, and then he goes there with them and then tells them they can't eat it until he's done, and then he just like devours it all, and they have to sit there and watch him, and they did all the hunting. And he's got that big mane. He eats himself into a food coma, and he goes off and he just passes out and sleeps, and then they get the scraps. And it's such a very interesting dynamic there. I mean, if that weren't strange and fascinating enough, which by the way, I remember an ex of mine, I saw this documentary about lions, and at the end, she was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "I don't get it." And I was explaining to her what I just said now. I don't get it. Why do they allow that? Why do these lionesses allow that? And I remember her just kind of looking at me like it was like a foregone conclusion, like it's so obvious why they do it. And she just says, "Because he's beautiful." That's one of my favorite quotes ever. You might see a trend. I love quotes that have some kind of understanding about beauty and our relationship to it, because I think beauty is a very strange and fascinating thing. And we can learn so much of it. I think it can really fill up life in a beautiful way. But another fascinating thing I was going to say about lions is, especially with the male lions, the other side. When a lion doesn't have a pride that he is in control over, what is he doing? And so if you look at the cubs, when the males come of age, they're run out of the pride by the alpha, by the dominant male. And then they have to essentially become nomads, and they roam the countryside. They roam the plains, and they it's almost like they go and have to survive and hunt. And as they do that, they sharpen their skills and they become better and better, and they find other male lions, and they kind of make this gang, and they go around and they hunt together and they hang out, and they might go find a pride and take it over. I'm not quite sure how the politics work out. Like, let's say you have a gang of males and then they go find a pride, and then they beat the dominant male, or one of them beats the dominant male, and he lords over the pride. What about his buddies? Do they come in there with him, or do they pretty much just go, "Okay, you're the man. We're not going to mess with you. We're going to go. See you later." That'd be interesting to know. So now I'm kind of playing with the shapes in the mane. And this was kind of fun because it's almost a slight creativity to it. You're seeing which tufts of the mane fold into others, and you're also seeing them all as shapes and proportions. And I'm being kind of conservative, but also trying to sketch a little so that I'm not too much in my head, so I'm not into the perfectionism of it. And sometimes as you keep this going, the sketching layers itself, and on its own, it's starting to make those tufts because the patterns that you start weaving together start to coincide with the ones that you just keep looking at with the reference. Because what you want to keep doing is looking at that reference and taking time to step back, look at it again. Each time you come back to it, there's a little bit of an improvement. And now I'm starting to kind of darken or see the contours, the outside. It's starting to give me more reference points to the inside. Sometimes you don't want to just do the outline. When I was a kid, I always did the outline. But remember, this is fun. And that's part of what my approach with the Solmanac is I want to do it again with fun. I like doing the little more production heavy ghost story type videos, but I do want to just run and gun with these and just see what that brings out. A sense of joy, a sense of play. That is what life is about anyway. And it would be pretty ironic for me to create these pieces and not be having fun. And you can really do that if you get in a grind constantly making them, or even worse, trying to make videos of them constantly and then editing them. And, that just adds up. And before you know it, you are getting burned out and you don't know where you went wrong. So I'm just having some fun with the mess here. And I think unconsciously, this is part of what was arresting me about doing a lion, particularly a male lion, because I can work with the mane and just see kind of what happens. And well, now we've got this body happening here that I had actually outlined a little bit of it or sketched out a little bit of it in the previous shot, and then I realized, oh no, I gotta pull back. So, I didn't do too much, but I apologize for that if you were paying close attention. But we're just kind of taking a little safari here and finding a lion. This is kind of the fun part. I'm giving a little texture. I'm finding a little shadow in the way that the tufts kind of separate themselves. But it is really beautiful whenever you're drawing a subject, whether it's a human or an animal that is in the wind, you kind of feel some of that wind on yourself. If you work on the eyes of a creature, you start feeling their nature within you, like within your eyes. And I've always found that's a really great thing. I think there's a reason that artists sometimes can get the reputation for being a bit sensitive. And part of it is like you really have to let this thing within you in order to let it turn around and then you bring something out. I think that's true of anything that you're learning and observing and sponging. And I was definitely feeling that with this, and there's just something very exhilarating about being this beast of beasts, this king of beasts, and the way he feels the wind is just so beautiful. It's almost like it's his wind, or yeah. Also, he gets incredibly hot in the sun, if you can imagine, with that mane. There's actually a fantastic monologue that Christopher Walken does at the end of the movie Pool Hall Junkies, and it's a fun movie. The monologue is just fantastic, and I always think of that when I think of a lion in the heat. And with that all that hair, and I don't envy him. But one thing I wanted to say, going back to those two ways that I think a male lion is fated to live his life, is on the one hand, when he's the pride, he really is treated like a king. And part of me goes, that is so messed up. I don't understand that. And look at him. He is beautiful. That's like the most gorgeous creature on the planet right there, you know? So I get that that is a certain power, a certain dominating nature that he projects. But it's also proven. And I remember a line in True Detective where Woody Harrelson asked Matthew McConaughey, he says, "Am I a bad man?" He's having problems with his life at home. And Matthew McConaughey's character is very sardonic and he's fun, but he says, "The world needs bad men. They protect us from the other bad men." I think that's the line. It's something like that, but I think that is pretty much this very fascinating hierarchy with lions. I mean, that's one of the most intriguing things about the lion is its social hierarchy. It's like, it's the cat that is not solitary, really. And when it is solitary, like those nomadic males, they find others, you know, so because they're not interested in being a loner like, say, the tiger. The tiger is spending his or her life pretty much in solitude. They're loners. They like to hunt at night, and very different, very, very unique to the lion. But there's such a proving ground, I guess, that nature exacts upon the male lion. He's got to go out and fend for himself, be against the elements. He's got to deal with possible starvation. He hunts like his life depends on it. He doesn't have a pride to take care of things, and then he'll get kind of a gang, I guess. I'm calling it a gang when it's a bunch of males. But you know, can you imagine once you are that just amazing dominant male and you go and you take out the male or you chase off the male of a pride and you take over that pride? I think there is some strange natural law that says, now you deserve this. Now you can lie in the sun and the females will respect you and you will have this, all the food, you will get the spoils, you will be spoiled. And I look at that now and I'm like, man, there's a lot that goes into that. There's such a complex code. There's a sequence of events that all adds up to this lion seemingly being in a place where he just doesn't have to do anything. Of course, if he gets too lazy, nature lets him know it, and then a new young lion comes in to challenge him. And if that lion has just been indulging himself the whole time, he's going to lose. And he's going to get kicked out of that pride, and he has to go fend for himself again. And that's that. Such an amazing animal. What a intense life that is. And here I was starting to see these kinds of patterns. Sometimes there's a little technique. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm not always a fan of when I do it. That's another thing when you're an artist. Sometimes you notice things that you do that you're not a fan of. So in the middle of the piece, there's kind of that bit of busyness with those shadows together. It's like right in the middle of the mane on the right side. And it's almost like a stack of different shadowy thick lines. And I feel like I wasn't really looking at the mane so much. I was just getting a little more into making it look interesting as a drawing. And that's something that I used to do a lot. So when I see it now, I'm like, oh, you know, I got out of that section and look what I'm doing there. That's looking a little more like how a main behaves. So I'm getting away from the problematic section. Another thing is I'm not a big fan of using the eraser. I'm really into. Sometimes you need to, but I'm really into listening to myself and just getting out of that section. Get out of there. um, you see that? I'm starting to smudge things. I'm starting to take my fingertip and let it get in there. And that's going to come in handy towards the very end. But you can kind of see where the bottom of the mane, where it's blowing onto the leg, that's starting to do I think the behavior of long fur in the wind. Which was great. The other part wasn't working, so I just left. And that goes back to scouting. Don't get too attached to anything. If something isn't quite working, part of what I don't like about erasing is I think it just adds to the belaboring of one section. Similar to how I advise not to get attached to one part of it right when you start. You should just be dancing around and making it fun. Making it light. It's all fun, but make it light. If it's light, it stays fun. So now I'm playing with the fur in other parts because I feel like I started to get into an understanding of how that fur falls upon him, blows in the wind. And that's the answer, my friend. So I haven't used this graphite in a little while, or else I probably would have been sharpening it a little more, but the flow state's the flow state. And this part is like pretty awesome. I mean, this is where I just get to kind of go in and do these little details, and I find that they are all coming together, and they're, like I was alluding to before, when things are clicking when they all start to inform each other how to be. As I keep working on this, it's also going to inform what the light is, the gradations. And yeah, see, now it's starting to look like a mane. Now it's starting to really connect with that first problematic side. Now you could say, well, maybe you just needed to have a little faith and keep working on that. I didn't want that to be the dominant texture of the mane. That's why I left it and I ran around. Which I think is one of the most important things to just keep learning about life is don't obsess over stuff. It's really helped me in life to just get in the habit of leaving things and then coming back to them. It's just like the great advice you can give any artist, which is step away from the painting. Don't get too involved. I've had artists tell me that, and it's just worked wonders. Because when you come back, it just looks like something different. And to go in microcosm here, as you can see, like as I have come back to that area, the rest of the mane that I've been learning about maneness. And all that studying of maneness by execution, by doing, by drawing, stopping, retreating, dancing around, scouting around, it's starting to bring like a cohesive whole. It's very exciting when this starts to happen. And as I keep working, this lion is starting to come to the fore. And there's half of me that goes, how did I get here? How did all this happen? How did this lion suddenly come onto the page? And that is so wonderful when you have that moment, because what it means is you got taken over by that flow state. That's very important. That's great for depression, by the way. Art therapy is really a thing. So it behooves you at a certain point in your life to just go do that art you wanted to do. Maybe you wanted to go do the violin. Maybe you wanted to go and be an oil painter. Maybe you wanted to go and dance. Maybe you wanted to ballroom dance. Maybe you wanted to take up guitar because that's what your life is about now. And you start learning mindset. A guitarist has, I think, a certain mindset that maybe a cellist doesn't have, and vice versa. A painter, same thing. So maybe you spent life doing something for very pragmatic reasons, and that's just heroic. And maybe in the later part, you want to just take up artwork and drawing, and practice makes perfect. And you can see as I keep building on this guy, I'm just getting all the different things that his hair does. I'm starting to, yes, here comes the smudging. So much fun. You know what's amazing about smudging, and I think this is just the coolest thing about it, is smudging has this ability to tell you that you are much further along in the piece than you thought. And I will say with this one, here I was going, okay, what else do I need to make this mane feel like the mane, you know? And I was doing all these details. I could have gotten in great danger in doing too many details. And then it would just look too busy and everything is the same tone because you're using the dark. But then the smudging goes and it just adds all this gradation within a few seconds. I mean, look at that. Now I'm starting to get a sense of softness, the fur. The other way was looking great, but it was almost looking like, streaming shrouds of tatters around him. But now look at what's happening. It feels like this kind of soft fur that could keep him warm, that could be soft, that a lioness might not be able to resist cuddling with. And I love the way this mane falls upon him. So, it's not easy being a lion, but the lion just seems poised for all kinds of glory. I think maybe there is a certain thing with other social animals like gorillas and wolves and vying for dominance, and it's just how they're built. They have to rule. And I think we can all benefit from finding that line within us. How we have our own triumph, we have our own journey, we have our own lion's journey, our calling. Meditate on how you can dominate your calling. And I certainly want to do that more this year. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to be watching this in 2026 or whenever. But maybe you have a challenge to yourself this year. I'd love to hear about that in the comments. I'd love to hear any thoughts you have on this. Or maybe any interesting tidbits you have about lions. Or maybe you can answer the question of what happens when a lion from a male gang of lions takes over a pride. Is it just him, or do the other lions follow him into the pride? Or at any rate, I always enjoy hearing your thoughts. That's part of the fun about YouTube. And this is pretty fun time making this guy. And I definitely came away feeling this kind of respect about him. And it was also really fun to research a little, so that as I was drawing him, it was like these things kind of are coming up, and I just feel a little more of a connection happening. It's very, well, as you find with any animal, once you start researching them, it is very complex. And it always amazes me that these are big cats. I mean, if you think about that, it's a big cat. At the end of the day, it's just a really big cat in the wild, which just always makes me smile. And then, if any of you who are watching this, if you have a cat, maybe you're looking at your cat and you go, yeah, now I've been thinking of the life of a big cat right now. And then you look at your little cat and you go, that is a little cat. And they don't roar. They have a meow. It's we have a lot of gifts that are given to us, The way that we get to enjoy domesticity. And frankly, we've got these terrible fires down in Los Angeles that are raging, and it is horrifying seeing that, hearing what people are dealing with. It is just awful. And I feel very fortunate, and that almost bolsters me wanting to shoot these episodes even more and finding more, digging in, getting in deeper, and seeing what else there is, because it is so easy to take things for granted. I can look around at my studio and go, what if I lost this? And that did happen to me. I mean, I lost everything in a fire once when I was young, and it just really affected me as a kid. And just the thought of how that is happening. I mean, I believe 10,000 homes right now are gone. My heart just breaks hearing that. It's just awful. And it's so amazing to think about how recent all these fires are. I mean, it really didn't happen until I think, I guess 2017 in all kinds of places in California. I mean, we'd get them in Southern California, but I grew up in Northern California, and we started getting firestorms in Northern California. And it's just mind-blowing. That never used to happen. And then the ones down south just get even worse. So it is really fascinating how all of that's unfolded, and everyone's got their own version of who to blame. But at the end of the day, be humble. Be grateful for what you have. If there's something you always wanted to draw, go draw it. If there's a trip you wanted to take, go take it. If there's some vocation you wanted, study it, learn it, get good at it, live your best life. Be a lion, Just go see what you're made of. Test your mettle. And one day you'll be in this amazing pride. You'll be around great people that inspire you. Or you'll be doing something that is just allowing you to soar. To just sit and feel the wind going through your hair. Well, you can do that anytime, and you should. And yeah, well, this guy is just about done. And, now I'm really seeing the shadows of it. There's a little glare that the graphite's picking up with the light, so you're not quite getting all the shadows. I don't know. That's a challenging thing when you're working with graphite, with the light. I've always got to kind of deal with the glare. It's challenging, but yeah, this guy is really enjoying himself in the wind there, and now it's just kind of jumping around. Adding bits of shadow so that the other two parts of the gradation, i.e. the middle part and then the light, all kind of pop there. And yeah, he's looking pretty happy. And anyways, I'd like to thank you guys for taking this little trip with me. It was kind of fun to see the places it went. learning about lions. Maybe you knew all this, or maybe you learned something of it, so that would be great. Maybe you learned a thing or two about drawing a lion, or maybe some technique. At any rate, I hope that you're being safe out there and you're living your best life. And I will see you all very soon. And there he is. Here's the Lion of 2025. Feeling the wind. And that was so much fun. I'm feeling the itch to get more going. Who knows? Maybe at the end we'll have a pride of lions. But yeah, thank you for taking this little trip with me. And it is really something to just draw an animal. You will find in some ways that it just starts affecting you and maybe kind of taking you over. I think it is all in all a great exercise to do. In some way, you just start to think about them, sympathize, empathize, what have you, appreciate what they're about, and maybe even find that in you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe you got a little value from it. Of course, I would like to point you to some of the other things in the description. There's the Substack where I have my long form ghost stories, and I have my Facebook community. And then of course, you can always find some nice Ghost in the Gaslight swag on the website. And if you liked this video, maybe you'll like this next one coming up right about now.